Welcome back to the Oklahoma Drill. We're about 10 days out from the draft. We had free agencies basically concluded at this point. And I've got Alex and Sam here with me to talk about all of that and then maybe some summer league takes. I think we're a little cooler as a podcast than we were on draft night as a whole. So why don't we start with Sam? What were your initial thoughts about the draft since you weren't on that?
It was fine. It was definitely seemed like the Thunder had a vision for it, which is good to see. They weren't just all over the place. I didn't get the chance to listen to your guys' recap other than our text in the group chat. I assume Alex was not very happy with the lack of athleticism, but at least it was something across the board. So it was very clear that was what Sam Presti wanted to do. He didn't misevaluate some fake athletes or something. I like Giddey. He's, like we talked about before, very fluid. I think he's a good basketball player and probably isn't there for like a competitive team right away. That's good for this team. So we probably don't want to be competitive as long as, egos can handle that. Looking back, there were maybe some higher upside guys we could have taken instead of Trey Mann at that spot. But for what the Thunder were, their identity they were going for in this draft, that was probably the highest upside pick at that spot for, there were guys like Keon Johnson or Jalen Johnson, guys that are just, massive swings on athleticism. But if you factor in that those guys probably weren't even on the board, Trey Mann is probably the highest upside of anyone that could have been on the board at that point. It's all fine. You'd like to see maybe a swing on Şengün at 16 instead of sending him off. I like Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. I think he could be a guy. He's one of those guys that we all say, if he can shoot it, he's a guy. But I think we all really reserved that phrase for guys who actually could potentially shoot it. And I think he is one of those. He showed some flashes in our first summer league game, showed some good vision. The shooting stroke looks good. It's just a matter of whether or not he hits it. Aaron Wiggins, I think, is a good swing to take in the second round. He showed some flashes also. Looks like he could be a really good secondary creator. Another guy that if he shoots it, he's easily a seventh or eighth guy in a rotation, provides some great stuff. Overall, it was fine. Underwhelming, maybe. I don't think it was a complete bust. A nice, solid B- with some potential upside and guys like Giddey.
So, do you have an opinion on what you think Giddey's upside? Like, if you're thinking just ideal scenario, what does Giddey look like to you for the?
I think guy secondary creator, obviously like Shea. Be on ball most of the time. But I think he's the guy that can push Shea off ball. If he happens to get the board, just take it in transition and go. I think he could be the point man in pick and roll. I think he can also, he's big enough. I think he can be the roll man if he proves to be a good finisher, and he seems to have really good vision, so he could, kick to the corners. Hopefully he gets, the shot up above, what do you think, like 36%. And I think could be a third best guy on a championship team, maybe. I think that's probably his upside. If he can really shoot it that well, I think that's probably his upside. His secondary creation, I'm not worried about at all. I think that's going to be there. And then, it's just whether or not how high he can get the jump shot, who I think his ceiling is.
Yeah, I think watching him in the summer league yesterday, and granted, it was 2 minutes. I'm not making a judgment based on this, but it just kind of solidified my ideas of what he's going to have to do in order to reach an upside, be an upside type player, because, I think it's fairly likely that he's going to be a good role player on a team. Like you said, he has the secondary creation. He's a really good passer. But to me, the problem with his shot isn't just that he's going to have to make it more. He's also going to have to change the mechanics in order to be able to get it off quicker, because, just in the short time yesterday, we saw him try to ISO against the big, and it took, 3 seconds to get the shot off, and it got blocked. You know what I mean? So that, to me, in order for him to really become a dynamic on-ball player, he's going to have to change his jumper almost entirely in terms of being able to get it off faster. And you never know how that goes in regards to it actually going in. If he's just going to be an off the ball shooter, sure, I think he could probably do that at some point at a fairly high level. But in order to be the pick that I think the Thunder made this pick thinking he was the highest upside swing at that spot. I honestly do. I think that the way Sam Presti evaluates players, I think he values skill sets over athletic tools at this point. And I think he viewed that as someone that had the highest upside at that spot. It's just going to be a really interesting journey to that upside that's going to involve a lot of change.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that was a good representation of what he's going to get in the NBA going up in that first game. Like, you probably don't get a lot of guys with Sekou Doumbouya's length in the NBL. So that was, good, not good to see that shot get blocked, and not good to see him struggle with guys with length, but, good to see that, there are very clear things he has to work on, and it should be pretty easy to identify what those are. And, hopefully he's enough of a grinder to figure it out. And luckily he'll, get to do it at a reasonable pace. Won't have to, throw him in there and expect him to perform next to Russell Westbrook immediately or something like that.
Yeah. I think these are all pretty good measured takes. I do think he showed in the very brief period we got to watch him that at the very least he's functionally athletic. Not in terms he's not a freak athlete. But I think he's probably going to be okay on defense. He had 2 really good closeouts on the same possession. That gave me hope.
I think he had another one. I want to say it was Sadiq Bey had him in the post, and this was post or after rolling his ankles. I mean, you could see he was limping around a lot, and I mean, Giddey fought hard in the post. The dude that was, more experienced and bigger than him stayed with him, didn't get plowed over, played solid defense. I'm with you, Ryan. I think there's definitely potential at least be a solid defender, and that's all you need out of him.
Yeah. I mean, on the possession I was thinking of, he closed out on a Kid Cunningham shot, and then the rebound came out and it relocated, made the closeout. Whoever he was closing out on put the ball on the floor, and he recovered really well, got in front of it, and I think ultimately caused the turnover because of it. I think it was a good defensive possession, especially as he fills out, which I think is going to be interesting. He's pretty big, size-wise. I think he's legitimately 6'9", and which makes me think this is a guy, especially we've talked about him as a secondary playmaker. I really think he's going to be a forward, in as much as that means in the NBA. But I feel he's not really going to be a guard. He's going to be a forward.
Yeah, I definitely don't think he's ever going to be quick enough to guard anything smaller than a 3. But I think he showed the want to hang with 4s in the post, and you shouldn't be worried about too many 4s that are going to blow by him. But yeah, I think he can play 3 or the 4 on defense ideally. And I think he showed, at least, guys of this summer league quality, he showed the ability to do that.
Yeah. So just to update kind of, because, last podcast I was fairly emotionally driven in terms of my analysis, we'll say. But, and I have had time to watch more Josh Giddey. I didn't watch it. I watched some, before the draft, but he was just a guy that I decided pretty early that I didn't want the Thunder to draft. So I kind of didn't watch as much as I especially have since. And, I think that him as a player, there is legitimately great upside there. I still don't like his fit on the Thunder, to be, specifically because, like I said last time, I want a balance of really good skill and athletic guys. And I don't love him and Shea together defensively. And from a pure athleticism standpoint, I really don't love him, Shea, and Poku together. just because I think you're just kind of building yourself as this very skilled but unathletic team that's probably going to struggle defensively, especially when it comes to guarding, in playoff basketball. But like I said earlier, like offensively, like if he shoots it, if he changes his shot and gets it to where he can get it off quicker, he's going to have to get better handle. That was one thing that you kind of notice, just watching him, like fairly rudimentary handles and not like this. I wouldn't call it a strength at this point, I guess is what I would say. And for a guy that's not overly explosive, and even if he is 6'9", he is going to have a really good handle to be able to drive around guys and operate at a high level in the pick and roll. But I'm definitely higher on him than I was draft night. So it's almost impossible for me not to be. But I still do worry about the fit in Oklahoma City. I do wonder if, we're building this slow team.
Yeah. And I think it's just something we'll have to probably trust Presti on. Obviously he makes a lot more money than any of us do for a good reason. And it's probably something like a guy like Giddey's skill set, you're not going to find that next year. What are the chances you find an elite athlete wherever you're drafting next year? Probably a bit higher than you find an elite skill guy. And there's so many guys in the league, elite athletes go to a bad situation, and those are the ones, like, you cannot make an elite athlete work in a bad situation. And so, maybe Scotty Barnes goes to Toronto and they trade Siakam, and, the team is just horrible. It's a horrible fit for him. And, his value is insanely low in a year or two, and Presti swoops in for a guy like that. Or maybe, it's a down the road, you can take a swing on the Keon Johnson guys, those just elite athletes that don't do much else. Maybe you can take a swing on one of those guys at 12, in the 2022 draft or something like that. So we'll see. I mean, it's definitely going to be a project for sure.
Yeah, I agree. With regards to the other guys, Trey Mann, JRE, Aaron Wiggins, we got to see way more of them in Summer League in their first game. So how do we feel about them? I'll say this about Trey Mann. Clearly willing to try things, especially at the rim. Not all of those things worked, but he had a great highlight scoop layup. That was cool, but not particularly good at the rim, or really just scoring in general yesterday. But I think there's some stuff there we can talk about. Alex, how did you feel about Trey Mann?
Thing that you said with Trey Mann is exactly where I was going to go. Like, the dude he tried shit yesterday, and very little of it came off, in terms of finishing with a bucket. He was like a soccer player, like a winger that is like crazy technical with no end product. That's kind of what it reminded me of. And he made this ridiculous move, and then he got into the lane and the finish just wasn't there. Which, that's fine. If his handle looked impressive to me, he was able to create and get around guys, even though he's a fairly limited athlete. That's kind of where I think Giddey needs to go. Like, he's going to have to develop handle like Trey Mann has. The finishing it's concerning in a sense, because he, on draft night, we talked about he's not a very long guy. Like, he doesn't have a plus wingspan to really speak of. So that could be just a long-term problem for him. Or, maybe his floater gets really good. He hit a couple floaters yesterday. And maybe that's something that could turn into a reliable shot for him. And that could be, the skill set to me is there offensively for Trey Mann to actually be something, and I think we saw that yesterday, even though the shots weren't falling.
Yeah, I think he definitely showed that he's a shot creator. He created some great shots, and he's just gonna have to be a shot maker, and that's what every guy's gonna be. Is first game in Summer League, the line's further back. He's not as adjusted for it. Probably has some nerves. I'm with you guys. Liked what he showed. Wish we had more than one game to go off of by now, but we'll get there. We'll get a couple more under us, I'm sure. The way the Thunder roster is constructed, we'll probably get to see him plenty this year. So,
yeah, I think the thing with Trey Mann is the end product wasn't there. But if you look at things in Summer League, like Alex said, his handle was really impressive. Like he was able to create shots for himself on the perimeter and at the rim. And you look at his shooting form, and there's not really like I'm not afraid of the way he shoots the ball. It just needs to go in. And there are a lot of guys who it doesn't, and that's a problem. But I think it's definitely too early to say that he's not really what we thought he was going to be coming in, which is a guy who can create his own shot. Yeah, I think that's the deal with Trey Mann.
How about Jeremiah Robinson Earl?
Looked exactly like we probably thought he would too, huh? Had a couple nice spot ups, played solid defense, had really good vision. I think early on he had some decent drives. The finishing wasn't exactly there. I think he might have had one or two decent finishes after we had kind of talked about that. But, he's not going to be a driver kind of guy. He's going to be a spot up, maybe cut occasionally, but certainly not going to take anyone off the bounce. So it's nice to see him try it out. Hopefully we'll get to see him. Maybe it'll be a skill he can develop. I wouldn't bank on it, but I think we saw some decent promise for what he will be going forward.
Yeah, I really like that he was effectively playing center a lot of the time, because if that's a thing he can do, then that's so much better than him on the wing.
Yeah, I mean, that was my biggest concern, was that he would just be like a guy that could only play the 4 in the NBA, and not that playing the 5 in summer league means he's going to be a great 5 in the league, but it shows that they're willing to try it. Right. Exactly. And, I think backup 5 is like a legitimate role that he could fill. I really liked the shot yesterday. The fact that he took it whenever he was open. And, so much of when you're talking about projecting guys as shooters, I think you have to evaluate the misses probably even more than the makes, because yesterday when I saw him miss his shots, they were usually like short, but they were like online. And that is the sign of someone that has potential shooting wise. The guys that you need to worry about are when you have no idea what side the ball is going to go. They might miss it a foot to the right, might miss it a foot to the left, but the guys that it's just a long or short type thing, those guys generally get it figured out. And I'm fairly confident that Jeremiah Robinson Earl is going to figure out how to shoot. Again, it's the same stuff from draft night. Like I wish he were longer. If he had like a 7'2" wingspan or something, then he'd be a really interesting center prospect. But as it is, he's probably just like a moderately interesting backup center prospect. Yeah,
and that's fine. I mean, you drafted him at 32. You didn't take the swing on him at 18. If he has the massive wingspan, then maybe you do take the swing on him there. But you got him early second round, so that's perfectly fine for a backup center that could actually play backup center in the playoffs, as opposed to taking a Luka Garza type guy who I think looks like he could be a fine regular season backup center, get you 18 minutes a night and score a little bit in the regular season. But that guy's not going to give you a single minute in the playoffs.
Yeah, just not going to be playable.
Yeah, if he is, then you're swept in the first round. So, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, he looks like you said, solid backup, but one that could actually be a real solid backup and not just one that's relieving minutes for fatigue reasons.
Yeah. Slight tangent. I want to talk about what Alex was talking about in terms of evaluating shots in the summer league. One example of this that I think is kind of pertinent here, watching the Hornets against the Kings, James Bouknight had a rough night from the floor, which again is understandable, and especially given that he was guarded like 90% of the time by Davion Mitchell, who was just in his grill the whole time. But there were some concerning things about the shot from the outside for me. He took a fairly normal in rhythm step back 3 and missed everything. It was horrible. And then he made a shot from the corner, but it was like off platform. And that's the sort of thing where I'm worried that people will see him make that shot and think that he's a good shooter. And he might end up being, but I'm concerned that his bad shots look better than his good ones right now.
Well, that's what he seems to be used to taking, that's what he took at UConn. So I still really like Bouknight. That Hornets team is,
they're terrible.
it's really bad, but I'm just talking like their normal team. Like
Right.
they're building something interesting.
Mhm.
You know, like it might not turn out to be like super great in a few years, but they're going to be at the very least really interesting to watch. But so yeah. Any other observations we've seen? I think Jalen Green looked really freaking good. He's definitely probably.
I think
better
Jalen
than
Green
any
is my
of the
current
other high guys.
Yeah, that's currently my like way too early pick for rookie of the year because he's just
Right.
going to put up numbers in Houston.
Some of the shit he does off the dribble with his just first step, it's just like, that's going to translate this year to the NBA. You know, he might not finish super great, and he might not be super efficient this year, but I think eventually that dude's going to average, 25 points a game. You know.
Yeah, he looks like a guy where the mid range, like he takes a lot of mid range, but he's going to be the kind of guy that he can make that work. Like that's an efficient shot for him. The nerds will be fine with Jalen Green. Like you don't want Aaron Wiggins took a couple of mid range shots and he drilled them. It's like, okay, we don't want Aaron Wiggins taking those, but like Jalen Green, the mid range, the step backs, they were all so smooth. He already has the guy beat off the first step anyway. So yeah, he looks really solid in there first.
That's like one of the big major strengths that everyone says about Aaron Wiggins is that he likes to take mid-range shots and he's like pretty good at them. But yeah, you're right. Like Aaron Wiggins, you said upside is like a 7th or 8th man. You don't want your 7th or 8th man taking mid-range jump shots. That would be stupid.
No, not ideal.
Yeah. Other evaluations summer league. I think Cade's going to be fine. I know a lot of people were sort of underwhelmed with his full game performance, but like his first quarter stuff, you immediately saw the potential there for him as a shooter. I think that my prediction this year is that Detroit fans are going to turn on Killian Hayes really hard for taking the ball out of Cade's hand.
Yeah, right. That's possible. And Killian Hayes is kind of leaving some shots a little bit off yesterday also. I wouldn't mind, if they do get tired of Killian Hayes, send him our way, Troy.
Compare him with his fellow Frenchman, Teo Maledon. What did we think of Teo? What did we think of Teo yesterday?
Oh, he's jacked.
He is. He's getting big.
I think he looked like you would expect a guy who played a year in the NBA to look in the summer league. He was just competent.
Yeah.
Like he ran the offense just fine after Giddey went out. He scored relatively efficiently, got a double-double.
Right. Yeah, he's just, to me, he's like I think we've talked about this before, but if you're going to have a guy like Giddey and Giddey hits, if Giddey really hits, Teo Maledon is like the ideal kind of point guard to play next to him, when Shea's off the court, because Teo's not really a primary initiator at all. He can do it a little bit. And if you put a guy like that next to Giddey, it makes a lot of sense. And you've got some size there. But yeah, I was really impressed with how he looked physically for sure. He's still going to have to shoot better. He didn't shoot well from 3 yesterday, but again, it was one game in the freaking summer league, so I'm not concerned there. But
I'm not like, you look at his mechanics and you're like, okay, there's nothing broken here.
And I still love his cross-court skip passes. Are like some of my favorite plays to watch. Like he had one yesterday that was just like, holy shit, not many guys are making that pass, and even Killian Hayes had one of those, and I was like, damn, So yeah, let's get Killian over here. He looked good defensively at times. So
yeah. That whole Pistons team, like it's worth saying, the Pistons brought a good team to summer league.
Well, they brought
legitimately
their team.
most of their starting.
Yeah, like they brought in all like Sadiq Bey. There's no reason for Sadiq Bey to be playing in the summer league. And
Sekou Doumbouya, Sadiq Bey, Killian, like legitimately, like this is their starting lineup.
Yeah,
there's probably not even a reason for Cade to be playing in the summer league.
Right.
Yeah, but except rookies always play.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it's like you could legitimately see them starting for those guys. I mean, they're not going to start Luka Garza at center, but they paid Kelly Olynyk too much money for that. But definitely they brought their team there, and and the Thunder beat them without Josh Giddey. So
that's true. Yeah,
championships incoming.
Like I guess the other thing with regards to that is it really demonstrates the degree to which the Thunder's, like the inverse of that is last year, the Thunder's regular season roster, very much a summer league roster.
Yeah.
Like guys like Jalen Horde, Josh Hall. Like these are guys who like you played in the NBA last year. This shouldn't be.
Yeah.
This is summer league. You know.
Jalen Horde is bad.
Yeah.
Like
Charlie
that,
Brown.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm just tired of like I don't need to see these guys. I don't need to see Jalen Horde, Charlie Brown. Like we've seen them in NBA games. Like we know what they are. Don't give them 20 minutes. I know it's just summer league, but we got guys we can evaluate. There's no need for this.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else on the roster, on that summer league roster, where we're like, oh, I'm interested to see him play? Like anybody have like Oscar De La Silva thoughts? Anybody have like?
I mean, De Silva intrigues me. He was really good at Stanford, and he never really shot it from deep, but he improved his free throw shooting every year. And he was like almost an 80% free throw shooter by the end of his senior year at Stanford. He's decently athletic. He has really good length. I think he has over a 7-foot wingspan. I don't know. He's kind of intriguing. I mean, there's probably a reason he stayed in school for so long. So he's probably not going to be a guy just because he'll probably never be able to shoot from deep. But I mean, he's intriguing to me at least.
Yeah, I thought he looked fine. I'm not super intrigued by him. I'm not really intrigued by anybody else. But you know, hopefully Giddey can play more, and it was just a super minor injury.
Otherwise, he's gonna play through it until they pull him off. Like
right. So hopefully he's in there in the next game. Otherwise, I'm basically just wanting to see Trey Mann actually hit on what he, already a pretty good first game. So that's really all I have on the summer league. I haven't watched the Cavs and Rockets game yesterday. I got to see Evan Mobley, who I just really like Evan Mobley. I think I might have been a little too low on him in the draft process, but rating him a little bit. I know Ryan wanted to talk about Alperen Şengün. You have some Şengün thoughts?
I do. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Real quick, I'm kind of intrigued by this Rob Edwards guy. Apparently, he shot 44% from three in the bubble. So I mean, that's not bad. Shot 37% at Arizona State and Cleveland State when he was in college. 6'5", good size. Like I don't know, he's not. I mean, that's the kind of guy I want to see on the summer league roster at least. Like see what he can do. Just repetitions, and like we've seen Charlie Brown get all those repetitions. We don't need to see that anymore. Give guys that have like in small sample sizes shown that they can be shooters. Like just see if they can keep doing it. And eventually, like you're gonna find your Duncan Robinson, maybe. Like just look for shooters.
You might find your Lou Dort.
Okay. So Şengün.
Okay.
And some of these takes are pre-summer league takes that are now informed by summer league. I'm really invested in Şengün being a bust now. Like,
welcome to the resistance.
The thing about this is, and Alex, I think you brought this up a little bit in the Twitter thread. Like, I don't think there's ever been a player like Presti, like Nega drafted him. Like whatever the opposite of drafting a player is what he did to Şengün. Because here's a guy who plays a position of need, who theoretically fits who's like the standard scouting report on him fits the mold of what the Thunder are theoretically trying to do. Who is young, again, a thing the Thunder like in a prospect, was playing in a professional league from an early age, a thing the Thunder like in a prospect. And yeah, he plays position of need. He's a guy who plays with skill, who can move the ball, pass, and theoretically shoot it, even though he took a 3 in their game yesterday and it was not close. And the Thunder didn't draft him. The Thunder could have drafted. The Thunder traded that pick to like a conference rival whose picks they own. So like I don't know.
A team they are invested in losing.
You're right. The Thunder have a vested interest in the Rockets staying bad. So, and like I understand people like, first off, people fundamentally don't understand what the picks that the Thunder got back for them will be. They'll be mid first round, late lottery picks. They will. Like they're not going to convey into seconds. They're going to be firsts at some point in the future. So the idea that they're highly protected is dumb because they're not. They're just protected in a complicated way. So that's part of it. I think people look at the Thunder doing this and say like, oh, they got like nothing for it. And like, no, they're going to get 2 first-round picks that are going to convey around where this pick was. But now that Şengün went and put up 15-15 and such in the summer league, a lot of people are like, oh, wow, Sam Presti really fucked up. And I don't know if you can like make that evaluation immediately. I think you look at Şengün's first game, and it's clear that he's played a lot of professional basketball. Like he knows how to get involved on the court on most possessions. And part of that is systemic. Like he was setting a lot of screens. He's pretty built. He's bigger around than I expected him to be coming in. So he's a solid screen setter. He knows how to position himself on the floor. He knows how to fight for rebounds. He knows how to box out. He didn't wow me with his rim protection, that's for sure. And the Cavs were not a team particularly built to like take him to the perimeter and make him pay. Given that their lead ball handler was Isaac Okoro.
My guy.
Okoro was great. I like Okoro a lot. And he and Evan Mobley are going to be a fun defensive pairing. But yeah, like he got 15 points. He went to the line like 7 times at least. And shot pretty mediocrely from the line. At one point he was like 5 of 9.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a little too early to say that he's gonna be a tremendous success. And I also think like there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that thinks that Sam Presti had a very low opinion of Alperen.
So I guess with Şengün is that like I think I was reasonably high on him as a prospect. But it also would be a little hypocritical for me to be super high on Şengün with as much as I talk about playoff basketball, because summer league is you're not getting isolated by James Harden or Kyrie Irving or something in freaking summer league. Like there's nobody in the league like that, so it's like a perfect scenario for him to go and play basketball and not get exposed. And I think that's what Şengün is going to be. I do think he's going to be a good regular season player, which does make it interesting that, Presti decided he would like the Rockets to have him, I guess, but because that could affect their picks. But, I think at the end of the day, if the Thunder had taken him, it would just be another guy that I would have to complain about not being athletic, that I would have to be worried about being able to defend and being a playoff player. So like, I'm not upset that the Thunder traded him. They got good value for that pick. Like you said, they might wind up getting 2 future number 16 picks, for 1 16 pick in this year's draft. So, I think it was a total value play for Presti, and clearly he didn't view Şengün in the way that John Hollinger views him. And that's fine. John Hollinger is super smart. He was a really big influence in the way that the Grizzlies built their team. But that was a Grizzlies team that always got to the playoffs and had problems. They were not built to play playoff basketball at the highest level. And so it doesn't really bother me that John Hollinger is huge on him. Kevin Pelton, I think he had Dakari Johnson in like his top 5 one year with that statistical breakdown. You know what I mean? So it doesn't bother me. I think Şengün could average 20 and 10 in the regular season in a couple of years, and it still won't bother me because I do feel comfortable that he's always going to be a liability in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think if you let Luka Garza play 30 minutes a night, he could average 20 and 10 also. So what's that going to get you?
And I mean, the other thing is like people came away from him putting up 15 and 15 in his first summer league game and being like, oh, he's going to be an all-star. Like, first off, he's not going to get 15 boards if he's playing with Christian Wood and John Wall and Usman Garuba. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Right. And here, what I'll say is that, like, even if he is an all-star, there's all-stars every year that make it, and then they're liabilities in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
DeMar DeRozan exists.
Well, the guy he was getting compared to is a great example of that, Nick Vucevic.
Yeah. Like, I don't want Nick Vucevic on my team. I don't care that he's a 20 and 10 machine. I don't care. Don't put that guy on my team. Again, especially because the Thunder, the way they're built, they are not built in any way to overcome the deficiencies that Şengün's going to have. If anything, the Thunder need a center that's going to cover up their other players' deficiencies. And that is super, super not Alperen Şengün. So,
yeah. And obviously, it was going against the best big in this year's draft, but he was getting bodied by Evan Mobley. And that's a quality big. But most of the guys he's going to be going against are quality bigs. Like, I don't see a world where he's not constantly getting bodied. Yeah, I'm looking at his box score. 7 of his 15 boards were offensive rebounds. He's not going to get that many against real quality competition. And the defense, like, I saw him just fail to box out so many times. And that is like the white Western Oklahoma guy in me, just box him out. Like, that is such an easy thing to do. And I watched him give up so many offensive rebounds, just not putting a body on his guy. Like, he's just going to try hard for boards on the offensive end. And yeah, he'll still be great at that. I'm sure he has a good nose for the ball, but they're just going to come, farther and fewer in between whenever he's going against real competition. And then, yeah, the defensive stuff, the rebounding on that end, that's just going to make you a liability.
Alperen Şengün sucks.
You heard it here first.
That's what we're going. That's our official stance at the Oklahoma drill, is that Alperen Şengün sucks. What you want to talk about? Let's talk about a couple other moves the Thunder have made, since we've been Thunder centric so far.
Yeah.
Kimba. We bought out Kimba.
Yeah. Saved like $20 million across his 2 years.
Yeah, which that's about as much as I've ever seen anyone give up. Grant, he went to the
he got a significant chunk of it back by signing whatever he signed with New York.
Yeah. But, I think that turned out to be a win-win deal. I know that there were reports that, the Thunder are very confident that they're going to be able to get something for Kemba Walker before the season starts. Yeah, the Thunder were also going to draft James Bouknight. So what the fuck does anyone know? You know what I mean? So I think the reality is, like, there wasn't a deal that the Thunder could make that was palatable. Maybe they could have made one and taken another distressed asset back. And maybe the Thunder just decided they were done. They were done doing this little thing where they, just get an asset, but they also get stuck with another really bad contract. And they decided, look, Kemba's willing to give us $20 million back because he really wants to go for the Knicks. And that's great. That's great for the Thunder. That comes off your cap. Like, that's one thing I don't know if a lot of people realize, is that when a guy gives you money back in a buyout, that comes off your cap sheet. Like, it's not just that you have to pay him less. It comes off of your cap sheet as well. So
yeah, not that it hugely matters, because I think the Thunder are still floor.
Oh yeah, no, but it's a thing. It's like he gave up enough money for them to be able to have taken in Derek Favors, and it break even, essentially, is how that kind of went. So
yeah, and at the end of the day, there is a human element to this shit, and especially for small market teams like OKC, like, that has been proven over and over again. Like, that is one slight advantage that we have on some teams in the league, and it's something that you just have to continue to do. You cannot ever let up on that, because as soon as you lose that reputation for being an organization that always gives players what they want, like, you're pretty much screwed. And so, you don't have to always get a sign and trade for Frank Ntilikina and a second round pick. Like, you don't have to milk every little bit of value you can. There is value in just, like, letting dudes be happy. And if that value comes from spending Clay fucking Bennett's money, like, who cares?
Yeah. Alex alluded to this. I guess the other thing to say is, like, ultimately, we were going to reach a point where we just had to buy one of these guys out. Like, and it might as well have been Kimba, because I don't know what the market is for Kimba. I think if we were GMs, we probably wouldn't be looking to trade for Kimba. Like, and yeah, so, like, just buy him out, because he plays a position that's, we have other guys we want to play guard. Right. What is it, Alex?
And I think that there is a scenario where they could have gotten something for Kemba, but it wouldn't have been this offseason. They would have had to come in and let him play and do the Al Horford, do the Chris Paul type thing. But that damages their season because the Thunder want to suck this year.
Right.
You know, and like if Kemba Walker's playing at a level that rehabs his value, that's the borderline all-star NBA player that you don't want on your team if you're trying to lose, you know?
And the other thing is that the knock for Kemba is injury, is his inability, is the idea that he's fragile. And a team in the situation the Thunder are in, like if you're rehabbing guys and if you're being cautious and you're trying to sit players, you're trying to lose games, you sit players for everything. You don't make anybody play through anything.
Right.
So like how, you know, when Kemba inevitably picks up a ding in the season, like the Thunder should want to sit him, but doing that would just prove everybody right about the fact that he's too fragile to be worth it.
Yeah. And it also kind of reiterates, like there is some kind of, there is an image that you can gain if you're the team that's always shutting down vets, you know, because that's what they did with Al Horford. You know, if you do that 2 years in a row, that could be a thing that just gets attached to you. And that's not something that you want either. You know, you don't want veterans to be like, shit, I'm going to go here and I'm going to play. You know what I mean? So,
and I mean, there's a degree which like you need to be smart about who you do that with. Because Al, obviously, like that was a beneficial thing for both parties. Everybody was happy with that. Trevor Ariza was clearly just fine with never setting foot in Oklahoma City. I think we were just fine with that too. And so that's a reality where it's like, okay, so, you know, those moves, it works. If Kemba wants to play because he knows that it's through playing that he will get somewhere he wants to be, then shutting him down is a bad idea.
Yeah, it's just about giving guys what they want. Some guys do want to just sit there and get paid $20 million. That sounds fucking awesome to me. And it sounded awesome to Al Horford. But as Rashad Phillips would say, Kemba is a hooper. Like Kemba probably wants to play. Kemba doesn't want to come just sit here, play 10 games, look decent, and then sit long enough to get traded. So this was probably the best case scenario. It's fine. Kemba, it was nice. It was nice having you here, Kemba. I didn't even know Rashad Phillips until like that tweet. And
the Hooper thing.
He's just,
he's so bad. He's
very bad. He's very bad.
He calls himself Yoda. Anybody that does that is I
don't even know what that's supposed to mean in a basketball sense anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, to me, he's just one of those guys that he just operates as if he thinks he's smarter than everyone else, and it's just I'm not a fan of Rashad Phillips. Cool. Derek Favors. How do we feel about Derek Favors? You alluded to
this earlier. Thunder traded for Derek Favors. They effectively traded nothing for Derek Favors. A second-round pick and some of Clay Bennett's money for Derek Favors and a first. Yeah, absolutely. Every time.
It's fine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the Thunder will find a way to make another deal like this eventually. You know, it'll be next offseason. There'll be teams that need to get rid of a guy, and the Thunder will be right there. You know, give us a first-round pick, and we'll do it. You know, we also literally needed a person to stand under the basket and play center for this team.
Yeah,
and I think Derek Favors is a great guy to get for them.
Right. Derek Favors is not very good anymore.
Yeah.
He's a competent NBA basketball player, but he's super slow.
Yeah.
He's not valuable offensively at all.
Yeah. He's not going to require basically any touches on offense.
Right.
He's going to rebound the ball on defense. And he's going to be like a chill veteran for the guys to
learn like from. He seems like a good vet.
Yeah. So teach we don't even have any big prospects for him to teach
Poku how to get there.
Yeah.
Teach Poku wide.
Teach Isaiah Roby how to box out or something. I don't know. Like that's.
But he's just going to be a guy, and that's fine. That's really all the Thunder need at the center position.
Right.
Because I mean, fingers crossed. There's 3 incredible big prospects at the top of next year's draft. I say incredible. Alex winced when I said 3 incredible. I think Alex thinks there's 2 incredible.
There's 2 good ones. There's 2 I like quite a bit. Cool. So. You know, and the thing with Favors that's really important, you know, as opposed to like Al Horford this past year, is that like Al Horford was valuable, as you know, he made the Thunder better. I mean, Favors might make them marginally better, but I don't think it's enough to like affect their win-loss record, essentially. So in that way, I think he's perfect. So
Right. He's gonna be like, I mean, he's gonna fill in like right alongside Mike Piscala in terms of effect on the Thunder season.
yeah.
It's like
he's no Moses Brown, that's for sure.
Moses Brown, who is no longer on the Celtics, right?
Right. Yeah,
They got traded, right?
Yeah, they, for whatever reason, that 16th, the guy that they thought was going to be as good as the 16th pick didn't even make their team. So they, I guess they thought that Brad Stevens is a really shitty drafter at 16. So who knows? Cool. Overall free agency, it's been like, okay, and we kind of knew it was going to be this way, but like, wasn't this like one of the lamest free agent classes ever?
Oh yeah.
Like
the price was like,
Lonzo's,
yeah,
sign and trade for Lonzo, sign and trade for Kyle Lowry. Like those were the big ones. Like,
yeah,
okay.
Lowry was like the most talked about guy in the league.
This was really like, this was the free agency of just signing guys to contracts you'll regret in 4 years. Like,
right.
That's all that happened.
Yeah.
The Luol Deng year.
Oh Jesus. Yeah. Don't do that. Chris Paul is just, what a finesse king he is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to get 4 years, 120 million.
It helps when you came up with the rules.
I know. That's incredible. Yeah. He comes up with the rules that allows him to get this money. And he decided he didn't want to be president anymore. So it's like he really did just become president so he could make more money, essentially, which is just fantastic. So,
but and he'll always get the like, there will be every documentary about the about COVID will have a Chris Paul segment. Like, he has cemented himself in like world history.
Yeah. He's not going to win a ring, but he's going to have that for his legacy. So, I guess I want to get your guys' thoughts on my beloved Los Angeles Lakers, because I do think that they're just objectively probably the most interesting team in the league. They added Russell Westbrook, who I have, whereas my opinions of Giddey and the Thunder draft have changed marginally since then. I have changed quite a bit on my opinions of Russ and the Lakers. So I'm just curious on how you guys are feeling about the way the Lakers roster came together.
I'm not serious when I say this, but they are absolutely drafting like they hired Doc Rivers. Like,
don't say that.
The pattern is absolutely guys who were really good in 2008. Like,
okay, yeah.
I'm joking because because a lot of the Lakers' best moves are guys who were like in middle school in 2008. So that is an exaggeration. But the Russ deal and the Carmelo deal, like, it's easy to poke fun at that. At the Ariza deal as well. But yeah, no, I think the Lakers are going to be fine. I think they're probably going to be really good. Like, even before they made all the moves that made people start rethinking the Russ move, like, I was like, yeah, the Lakers are probably my favorites in the West. Like, because it's still LeBron James and Anthony Davis and everything else is fine. Like, Russ's spacing is going to be a problem, but it's not going to be that much of a problem. Losing Alex Caruso, like, okay, fine. It's LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
I think Alex was the one that says, like, they didn't have spacing before. It's not like Russ is ruining your spacing. It was already bad. Now you have guys, at least, that know how to operate in bad spacing. Like, it'll be fine. It'll be whatever.
Yeah. I was a little concerned with. I mean, the Melo deal seems weird. Like, it is really easy to make fun of, but I think if you evaluate what his role is going to be on the team, he's going to be like a backup for that. Essentially he's going to be taking Markieff Morris's role, and I think he's better than Markieff Morris, so that's fine.
Yeah, like, it's the Melo thing is going to be fine. He's going to play the same role he played in Portland, but on a team that doesn't need him to play defense. Right.
On a team that's actually competent around him at all. The Monk and the Nunn moves were really interesting to me because I was concerned that we're just going to sign a bunch of really fucking old guys, and for the most part they did. But then they did get Monk, who is, I don't know how that guy went for the minimum. That doesn't really make sense to me. Like, that dude's a legit. He shot 40% from three this year, and he's a ridiculous athlete. Like, he can score. Kendrick Nunn can score. Like, he's a good backup point guard to have. Like, I'm pretty high on what the Lakers did. I still think the Nets are the favorites coming into next year, but I think the Lakers are by far the favorites to come out of the West. Like, I have very little doubt about that.
Yeah, it seems like the player empowerment area, like it has trickled down to everybody. Like, yeah, there's still guys that just want to get their money, but I think there are more and more guys that just want to win. They want to prove themselves, and that's kind of the Lakers are in a good position to get those guys. Like you said, Monk took the minimum. Kendrick Nunn took less than the Knicks and other teams were offering. Austin Reeves, Mac McClung, and Joel Ayayi, like all guys that could have gone in the second round, did the Lou Dort and forced themselves undrafted because they wanted to choose where they could go. And they obviously all chose the Lakers because there was gaps in the Lakers roster that all those guys are confident enough they thought they could fill. And shockingly, Austin Reeves might get to fill one of those. So maybe we're not as smart as Rob Pelinka, but he seems to be doing okay in summer league, and that might be one of their floor spacers. So I'm not sure I would want to count on that guy to space the floor for me, but hey, they might have to be banking on that this year.
You know who isn't empowered?
Who's that?
Dennis Schroeder.
He still hasn't signed anywhere, has he?
Still hasn't signed, and he saw him on Instagram today doing some kick flips on a skateboard. So
yeah,
he's gonna be playing. He's gonna be playing at like Ulm or something. He's going back to Germany.
Man,
could have made $85 million.
Yeah, I'm glad he turned that down. Like, he's probably just going to sign for the minimum somewhere at this point, like maybe in Boston. I've seen that as a rumor. And that's like kind of interesting to me, but
he
like
should
Boston,
go, like legitimately, he should go to Spain. He should pull, who did that? He should do the Mirotic thing.
It's go be a star in Spain.
Yeah, just go. Like go. Live in.
He would wreck that league though.
Yeah,
like,
you'll score 25 points a game, and you'll be the featured guard on whatever team you're on, and you'll get to live in Spain instead of this hell place.
Go play for Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Okay. Go play. Gabriel Deck just joined FC Barcelona, I think. Go play with Gabe Deck in Barcelona. Yeah, man. Cool. Any other interesting, like the Bulls? I hate the Bulls. I hate them.
Yeah, I don't understand. I guess I was really telling on myself by thinking, like, why does everyone love this team so much? And a lot of smart people have like Sam Vecini have been talking on podcasts and on Twitter about how people just haven't paid attention to the Bulls, and Zach LaVine is a legit star now, and sure, whatever. But like, Vooch is still Vooch. He's still a great regular season player, but I don't think Zach LaVine being a star, like, he's not the lead guy on a championship team. And everyone's talking like the Bulls are the second or third best team in the East. And like, I don't even know if they're a home playoff game or a home series in the East.
They're not getting out of the first round in the playoffs. Like,
I think
they traded for Vucevic this year and got worse.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing with the East is that I think it's pretty flat.
Right.
In the once
Brooklyn
you get out of
Milwaukee.
Yeah, once you get out of the home playoff seeds, like, I feel like it's a pretty flat league. Who is playing point guard?
Zach LaVine will play point guard for them.
Lonzo.
Yeah, they're both kind of
combos.
Yeah.
Their starting five projects as Lonzo, LaVine, DeRozan, Pat Williams, and Nikola Vucevic.
One of those guys plays defense, kind of.
Lonzo.
Yeah,
and
that's
Pat Williams. Pat Williams is just so young. Yeah. Like, theoretically, he's a good defender. But yeah, Vucevic, not good. DeRozan, maybe a little underrated, but he's still not great.
No, and now he's like permanently going to be playing. Like, he's going to be stuck in at the 3, where he's going to have to play guard guys bigger than him.
Shouts to DeMar DeRozan for getting the bag. Like, I think he got the same deal that Kyle Lowry got, which good for him. And like, if the Bulls, as a fan, I would just hate it if I were a Bulls fan, because
I know one Bulls fan, he absolutely loves it.
Yeah, I know a Bulls fan that likes it. He's not all in, but he
I don't
likes
understand.
it.
I don't understand.
Yeah, and it just because the Bulls are just not. They're not. It's not like they're gonna parlay this into like getting free agents. They never get good free agents. DeMar DeRozan might be one of their better free agent gets. And
Yeah. I mean, I think the
that's
idea,
rough.
like, you look at this team and offensively, you're like, okay, they can go 5 out and have Levine and DeRozan work with all the space they've ever dreamed of. Like, okay, a lot of teams can go 5 out.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. A lot of teams can do that, and I don't know. I just hate it. I hate the Bulls. Like, if they, I wouldn't hate it as much if they didn't have Vucevic. Like, if they had just added a top 10 pick in this past draft, I could get behind what they did a little bit more. But just the fact that they're seemingly just all in on a team that hasn't made the playoffs, not even close. They weren't even close to the play-in this year. So like it just, I don't know, man. And Billy Donovan's their coach. Billy Donovan's the guy that's going to whip this team into a playoff team. I'm skeptical of how that's going to go for them, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. Any other teams that have been like particularly interesting to you? I mean, I think the Heat are.
Yeah, we need to talk about the Heat.
Yeah, the
deal they gave to Jimmy Butler was a mistake, but you do what you have to, I guess.
I'm waiting for Jimmy's body to just break down. Like he's held on longer than I thought he would. But yeah, he's certainly not going to be good at the end of this contract. Kyle Lowry's old. But if you really think about it, like they're going to be running a lineup of Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, whoever at the 4. Can't even remember. But then they'll have Bam too. Like that's a home seed playoff team probably.
Yeah.
And like that's interesting.
Duncan Robinson's overpaid, right? We agree on this.
Yeah, I mean 5 for 90. Like I don't think it's egregious. I think it's probably like 5 million, or maybe not overall, but maybe 3 or 4 million a year over what he probably should get. But
but that adds up to like 20 million over what he should get.
Right. But again, it's Miami. If they want to find cap space in a couple years, you can trade him pretty easily.
Yeah.
He's still a 6'8", one of the best shooters in the league. So there's plenty of teams that would trade for that, and so I don't think it was a bad deal at all. But anyone else that we're interested in, or maybe from the draft that we are just interested in watching this year?
Like I spent a lot of time ragging on them, but Charlotte's going to be interesting this year.
Yeah,
like I talked, like the bottom of the East is pretty flat. They could make the playoffs. It's not impossible.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be about how good. Like if LaMelo makes a big jump, he might be good enough to get him in, and they have enough young talent around him that they could be a super fun team. And, everybody talks about their play-by-play guy. I freaking hate him. I hate that guy. I hate play-by-play guys like that. Have you guys heard him?
I think I've heard people talk about them, but I've forgotten what the deal is with him. Is he just like always extremely excited?
Oh, he just yells. Like he's just Miles Bridges. Like every time he dunks, it's obnoxious. I hate.
I think they had like a game winner during the year that went viral on Twitter from him, and I was like, okay,
yeah,
whatever.
I'm not.
It's like fan. Okay, the Bucks have Gus Johnson, so like, what do you?
Do they still have Gus Johnson? Is that still a thing? They had him at one point. I know that, but
pretty recently, I remember him calling Bucks games, but I don't know exactly when that was.
Yeah, I can't remember. I do. Okay, the last team that I really want to talk about is Portland. What the fuck are they doing? What the fuck are they doing?
Blowing it up, care. I think.
I don't think they care.
Are they really blowing it up, Sam?
I don't know. I mean, there are no real substantiated rumors, but I don't know.
I think it's less of a controlled tear down and more of a like, if it falls over, we don't really care.
Yeah, just do something. Just make your own decisions. Don't have your hand forced, and you trade Dame for a second round pick in 2024.
Right.
Yeah, like they're not interested in making moves to make the roster better.
Clearly.
They're not.
Clearly, they're not.
They don't appear particularly interested in tearing it down and starting over. They're content being mediocre as long as Dame is there. And then when Dame leaves, we'll see what they decide to do. But I bet they'll be content being a bottom feeder after it. Like, I think like that's an organization that's just not run by anybody who is interested in doing their job well.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean they've like I guess in a world, if you're like a very optimistic Portland fan, you could talk yourself into Cody Zeller being an Enes Kanter upgrade. But it's
that's the move. That's what they needed.
Yeah,
it's Cody Zeller.
They just weren't getting enough from Enes Kanter, not the guy they thought they were signing.
Yeah, that was the missing. Cody Zeller was the missing piece. Like I feel bad. Like I mean, I don't really feel bad for Dame because he kind of has openly kind of made it his image to be the Portland guy, and it's just going to wind up blowing up in his face. But so that team they're going nowhere, and it gives me joy that they are going nowhere because I do not like Portland. I never have. And yeah, it's nice to see them suffering, to be honest. Is there anything else we want to talk about? I think we kind of ran through it. What a boring free agency, man. Jesus.
Yeah, just miserable. Kawhi still hasn't resigned.
He did.
Oh, he did. Okay.
He did resign. Okay. Yeah.
Not that there was any actual drama about that because, like, literally, like he waited, and in the space he waited, like everybody else moved on without him. It was like the opposite of what happened when he went to the Clippers.
Right. Oh, I did realize we didn't talk about Shea re-signing.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty big deal.
So Shea got a lot of Clay Bennett's money.
Yeah. That was cool. And I think the big deal about this is that he signed for 5 years with no options. And I think that that's a pretty good indicator that he's completely down with what's going on in terms of how the Thunder are building, because if he wasn't, I would assume he would want the earliest out that he could get while still being guaranteed as much money as possible. So he would want that player option. And it's not like the Thunder are in a situation where they can be like, no, we're not going to give you that player option. So I assume the fact that he was willing to just do 5 years straight, that like he's happy with how things are going and he is committed to what they're doing at this point. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
He was always going to get that contract. He deserves it 100%. So
yeah,
good for the Thunder. Good for Shea.
I guess recent news, Luka signed like the same deal. I don't know what
it's worth more. It's worth
it's more money because he's Luka.
Because he's super
all
nice.
pro, yeah.
Because he's qualified for more. He signed like the same thing Trey signed, I guess.
Right.
So there is a clause in Shea's contract where like his money goes up if he does make.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he makes it this year it goes up, or if it's just at any point during his contract, because he's not going to make it this year.
Yeah.
But I think it might just be at any point in his contract that goes from being, I think it's 25% of the cap right now to 30. And that's a substantial raise if he can get there within the life of that contract. So, all right. I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
Thanks. So.
Yeah. I don't really think we have anything else to talk about. God, we flew through that, but you were right. That was like a really boring free agency. Thank you for listening to the Oklahoma Drill. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, the Google Podcast Store, now on Spotify. Check us out on Spotify, the Podbean app, and Amazon Podcast. We're in a lot of different places. Check us out on YouTube if that's your thing. If you're one of those heathens who listens to podcasts on YouTube. And I think that about covers it. You can follow us on Twitter at RWMaxi, at Perd_Hapley, and at Not That Sam Davis. And we will see you guys later.